They found debris indicative of a crab boat going down, no life raft, no survival suits, no nothing, and yes, it's that destination. How does a crab boat just disappear? No warning, no life rafts, no survival suits floating on the surface. Just debris scattered across freezing water, telling one brutal truth: whatever happened out there happened fast.
Come on, baby. Got some in there? It's alive! Yay!
A lot of reality shows love drama. They stretch moments, add music, and make things look more intense than they really are. But Deadliest Catch isn't one of those shows. The danger you see on screen is real. The fear is real. And sometimes, the worst moments don't come with shouting or explosions, they come with silence. Over the years, the show hasn't just exposed the brutal dangers of crab fishing in the Bering Sea. It's revealed the dark, raw cost of life on these treacherous waters. Arguments explode on deck. Secret romances spark in the shadows. Betrayals and rivalries ignite with every wave. But behind the drama that plays out on screen lies a far grimmer reality.
Tonight, tragedy at sea. 3 fishermen are dead after their boat capsized just off the Oregon coast.
Tragedies strike without warning. Ships have gone down, crews vanish, and the sea takes no prisoners sometimes while cameras are rolling, other times just out of frame. Viewers have witnessed tempers flare, secrets unravel, and personal lives implode under the strain of life at sea. The fight for survival isn't just against the icy waters, it's against the pressures, temptations, and betrayals that tear crews apart from the inside. And yet, some questions linger. What happened to the boats that never returned? Which of the cast we've cheered or despised faced the ultimate price out there? Who survived the sea's wrath? And who paid with their lives? This is more than a show about fishing. It's a high-stakes world where danger, scandal, and heartbreak collide in ways you can't look away from. To understand that, you have to go back to one of the earliest and most heartbreaking moments connected to Deadliest Catch, the sinking of the Big Valley. The Big Valley wasn't a main boat on the show, but its loss hit hard. It appeared in the pilot episode, which made it even more painful for the fishermen who had crossed paths with its crew. These weren't strangers. These were guys they'd talked to, worked near, and shared the same dangerous waters with. Then, one morning, everything went wrong. January 15th, 2005. Around 8 a.m. That's when Captain Gray Edwards activated the ship's emergency beacon. At the time, the Big Valley was about 70 miles from St. Paul Island, Alaska. Far from shore, but not completely out of reach. There was still hope. Rescue teams knew the location. The Coast Guard responded. Other crab boats, including vessels that would later become familiar on Deadliest Catch, rushed to help. Crews from ships like the Maverick, Cornelia Marie, and Sea Rover joined the search, scanning the water, hoping to find survivors. But the situation spiraled fast. The search went on for days, and when it was finally over, the outcome was devastating. 6 men had been on board. Only 1 survived. 2 bodies were recovered. 3 were never found, including Captain Edwards himself. The sole survivor, Cash Seal, later explained what happened. He had been asleep when the boat suddenly started rolling. Not slowly, not gently. It was violent, confusing. He heard voices, shouting, panic. Everything was happening at once. There was no time to think. His instincts took over. He made it to a life raft, and that decision saved his life. Investigators later said the Big Valley may have been carrying far more weight than it should have. Some reports suggested up to 3 times its safe capacity. In calm water, that might already be risky. In the Bering Sea, it can be deadly. Watching that tragedy unfold on the show changed how people saw Deadliest Catch. This wasn't just intense television. This was real loss. And just when it seemed like that lesson couldn't be clearer, the sea claimed another vessel. 1 year later, in October 2006, another crab boat went down the ocean's Challenger. The boat capsized while fishing roughly 90 miles from Sand Point. Even today, the exact cause is still unclear. But the weather was brutal, and the conditions were unforgiving. 4 crew members were on board. Only one made it out alive. Kevin Farrell survived because he was wearing a survival suit. That one piece of gear, bulky, uncomfortable, easy to ignore, became the difference between life and death. Reports later revealed that before the ocean's Challenger went over, the crew managed to launch a life raft. But the sea was too rough. The waves were too strong. They couldn't reach it. Imagine seeing safety right there and not being able to get to it. The ocean's Challenger wasn't a featured boat on Deadliest Catch, but its loss still became part of the show's story. In a later episode, viewers saw cast members helping with the search and recovery efforts. No hype, no dramatics, just fishermen facing the reality they all fear. These moments strip everything down. They remind you that every trip out there is a gamble, that every captain, every deckhand, every boat you see on screen is one bad decision or one bad wave away from disaster. And yet, they keep going back. Not because they're fearless, but because this life is all they know. Because the sea provides, even as it takes. And because for some of them, the risk feels worth it. But the tragedies don't stop with the Big Valley or the ocean's Challenger. As the seasons go on, more close calls, more losses, and more haunting moments emerge, each one raising the same uncomfortable question. How does a ship that's been working for decades just disappear beneath the sea? That question sits heavy when you look at the tragedy of the Alaska Ranger, because this wasn't a rookie operation or a careless crew. This was a ship that had been active for more than 30 years. It had history. It had experience. It had people who knew what they were doing. And yet, on March 23, 2008, none of that was enough. The Alaska Ranger was owned by a major fish factory and crewed by seasoned fishermen. On the surface, everything looked solid. But the ocean doesn't care how long you've been doing the job. One failure is all it takes. Investigators later confirmed that the disaster started with the loss of the rudder. Once that happened, water rushed into the steering room. Control was gone. Balance was gone. And in freezing waters, time became the enemy. What followed was chaos, confusion, and a fight to survive in conditions no one is ever fully ready for. By the end of it, 42 crew members survived. 4 bodies were recovered, and 1 person was never found alive. And here's the part that still makes people shake their heads. During the rescue, the Coast Guard was initially given the wrong number of people on board. They searched for 46 crew members, reached that number, and stopped the operation. Only later did they find out that 1 more person was missing. The search resumed the next day, but by then, it was already too late. 1 wrong number, 1 delay, 1 life lost at sea. That missing crew member was the same person the Coast Guard had to restart the search for, and it's hard not to wonder what might have happened if that information had been right the first time. Deadliest Catch later covered this tragedy in a special episode called The Last Hour, and once you see it, it sticks with you. At this point, it becomes clear that shipwrecks aren't rare moments on the show. They're a harsh reminder of what this job really costs. Just months later, another vessel joined that list, the Katmai. On October 21st, 2008, the Katmai sank about 120 miles west of Attu Island. At first, many believed a passing storm caused the wreck. That explanation made sense. The Bering Sea is brutal. But the investigation told a different story. The Katmai was already in trouble long before the weather turned. Out of the 11 crew members on board, only 4 survived. One of them was the ship's captain, Henry Blake III. During the Coast Guard investigation, Blake admitted something critical. The ship had pump problems from the very start of the fishing season. Water was coming in, and the pumps weren't handling it properly. The hope was that they could manage it, that they could push through without major issues. But hope doesn't stop flooding. When the situation became impossible to control, Blake ordered the crew to put on their survival suits. It was the moment every captain fears, because it means you've crossed the line where saving the ship is no longer possible. Blake and part of his crew managed to hold onto a life raft for 17 hours before rescue arrived. 17 hours in freezing conditions, watching time run out. By the time help reached them, 7 crew members were already gone. The Katmai's final moments are shown in the first 2 episodes of Deadliest Catch Season 5, and they're hard to watch not because of dramatic editing, but because of how real it feels. No music can soften that kind of loss, but among all the tragedies tied to the show, one stands apart in a very different way. The death of Phil Harris, captain of the Cornelia Marie, a longtime cast member, a fan favorite. Someone viewers didn't just watch, they connected with. Phil wasn't just a fisherman on TV, he felt like family to a lot of people. Phil's story started early. His father introduced him to fishing as a child, and by just 21 years old, Phil became a captain, something almost unheard of in the Bering Sea. His career was impressive, no question about it. But his life off the boat was complicated. Phil went through 2 divorces, and his relationship with his younger son, Jake, was strained. Just weeks before Phil's health collapsed, the two had a serious argument over Jake's struggles with addiction. It was heavy, unresolved, and painfully human. When the 2010 crab season began, Phil was already dealing with serious health issues, chronic pain, back disc injuries, problems he pushed through day after day because stopping didn't feel like an option. Until January 29th. That day, Phil was found collapsed on the floor of his room, unable to move. He was rushed from the Cornelia Marie to a hospital in Anchorage. For a while, it looked like he might recover. There was hope. Real hope. But on February 9, 2010, Phil Harris passed away. Deadliest Catch honored him with an episode titled Valhalla, and it's one of the most emotional moments in the series. Phil wasn't perfect. He was tough, stubborn, loud, and flawed. But he was real. And that's why his loss hit so hard. These stories aren't just about ships sinking or seasons ending. They're about how fast everything can change out there. One moment, you're working. The next, you're fighting to survive. That's the part people don't always get about Deadliest Catch. Everyone expects shipwrecks, waves taller than houses, and men being thrown around like toys. But some of the damage happens when no storm is raging at all. Sometimes, the danger comes during moments that were supposed to be happy. Back in January 2013, the Time Bandit, captained by the Hillstrand brothers, wasn't fighting ice or monster waves. The boat was transporting fireworks from the Hillstrand family's own brand. Something meant for celebration. Something meant to mark victory. At some point, fisherman David Zielinski was told to light one of those fireworks to celebrate a sports team's win. Just a quick moment. Just a bit of fun. But the second he launched it, everything went wrong. The firework exploded in his hand. No warning, no second chance. In an instant, his skin and bones were destroyed. He survived, and that alone says a lot about how tough these men are, but he lost his hand. His life changed forever in one careless moment that wasn't even related to fishing. Zielinski later filed a lawsuit against the Hillstrand brothers, asking for compensation. Years went by, and in July 2019, the court ruled in his favor. The money didn't fix what happened. It couldn't. But the case became another reminder that on these boats, even celebrations carry risk. And that's something the sea keeps proving over and over again. Because sometimes, the danger isn't loud. Sometimes, it's inside your own body. Sig Hansen is one of the most recognized captains in Deadliest catch history. Love him or hate him, his presence is impossible to ignore. He's intense, stubborn, and completely devoted to life on the water. But the sea has a way of humbling even the toughest people. In 2016, viewers watched a moment that felt terrifyingly real. Sig suddenly experienced severe chest pain. He struggled. He collapsed. On screen, it looked like a heart attack, and for a moment, it felt like nobody knew if he was going to make it. At the time, even Sig didn't fully understand what was happening. It wasn't until the Northwestern reached Dutch Harbor and he was taken to Anchorage that doctors confirmed the truth. His heart had betrayed him. What followed wasn't quick or easy. Sig had to step away from the show for an entire season. For a man who lives at sea, being forced to stop felt almost unnatural. But his body left him no choice. Then, just when fans thought that scare was behind him, it happened again. In October 2018, Sig suffered a second heart attack. This one was linked to a reaction from medication. Cameras weren't there this time, but Sig later talked about it during season 15. Calmly, honestly, like someone who had already made peace with how close he'd come to the edge. Thankfully, his health has been stable in recent years. Still, those moments rattled fans deeply. Because if someone as experienced and hardened as Sig Hansen can be taken down that fast, it makes you realize how thin the line really is out there. And sometimes, that line disappears completely. One of the darkest moments connected to Deadliest catch came in February 2017. The fishing vessel destination vanished in the Bering Sea near St. George Island. One moment it was there, the next, it was gone. 6 crew members were on board. Investigations later showed just how fast it happened. Too fast to send out a proper distress call. Too fast to launch a life raft. Too fast for anyone to escape. Every single person on board lost their life. At the time, reporters described it as the worst fishing disaster in Alaskan waters in more than 10 years. That's saying something in a place where danger is normal. Deadliest Catch honored the crew during the season 13 finale. It wasn't dramatic. It didn't need to be. The emotion on the cast's faces said everything. This wasn't just another boat lost at sea. The destination's captain, Jeff Hathaway, wasn't a stranger to them. He was respected, admired. In Jake Anderson's case, he was a hero. Jake later shared that Hathaway was the first person who ever gave him a real job as a captain. Losing him wasn't just professional. It was deeply personal. Later findings suggested the destination may have been overloaded beyond what it was built to handle. The worst part? The crew likely didn't know the true limits of the vessel. They trusted it. And that trust cost them everything. And still, the sea wasn't done. On New Year's Eve 2020, while most people were welcoming a new year, the fishing vessel Scandies Rose was fighting rough waters near Kodiak Island. On board was Dean Gribble Jr., a former Deadliest Catch cast member who appeared in Season 13. The conditions were brutal, strong winds, heavy seas, but what happened next shocked even seasoned fishermen. The boat capsized. 3 people died. Only 2 survived: Gribble himself and fisherman John Lawler. Gribble later described how sudden it all was. One moment, they were asleep. The next, they were in the freezing ocean fighting for their lives. From sleeping to swimming was about 10 minutes, he said. 10 minutes. That's all it took for everything to fall apart. No long warning, no slow buildup, just chaos. These aren't just stories. These are families torn apart, friends left behind, chairs that stay empty forever. And they show the raw truth behind Deadliest, catch a truth that goes way deeper than television drama. This job doesn't forgive mistakes. It doesn't care how experienced you are. It doesn't care if you're celebrating, resting, or doing everything right. The sea takes what it wants, when it wants. And yet, season after season, fishermen still head back out there. Thanks for spending some time with us today. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe, so you never miss another story from the high seas. We've also handpicked a few videos we think you'll want to watch next. Don't miss them. Drop a question or comment down below. We love hearing from you. Thanks again for being here with us, and we can't wait to see you back tomorrow.